Caution. Listening to this podcast may motivate you to make positive changes in your life, identify ways to accelerate your career trajectory, and develop a path towards financial freedom. This is the Career Meets World podcast, and I'm your host, Edward Gorbis. And I've spent the last 10 years focused on helping thousands of people advance their career while in parallel teaching a secret recipe to reach financial independence. And I'm here to share the untold stories of successful people and teach thousands of listeners how to develop a growth mindset. Our minds are malleable, and everyone has the power to change their mindset through perseverance, dedication, and a passion for learning. So if you're ready to skyrocket your business and financial literacy, turn up the volume and let's dive right in. This is the Career Meets World podcast. As always, welcome back, podcast family. It is such a pleasure that you are taking your time out of your life to listen and learn and commit to yourself to becoming a better leader. So with that being said, with us today, we have an incredible human being. His name is Tim Salau, and his life's purpose, his why, is to strengthen the bonds between people sharing through compassionate action. Tim, also known Mr. Future of Work Salau, is the CEO and co-founder of Guide, the premier B2B learning and talent development SaaS application that helps remote teams and knowledge workers learn anytime, anywhere, on demand. He's an author, an investor, an accomplished international keynote speaker, a product leader, tech influencer, and the only Nigerian African-American activist and global authority leading and shaping the discussion on the future of work, leadership, and innovation. Through his life's work and global platform, he's directly impacting a magnitude of 150 million people. And Tim inspires millions of professionals and business leaders daily to embrace change and thrive in the future of work. He's been recognized by global brands, government institutions, and global media brands ranging from Amazon, Google, Microsoft, LinkedIn, Forbes, the Wall Street Journal, and Millennial Mogul for his work as an innovator and global tech leader. And that is why I'm personally so excited that we get to share this conversation with Tim and myself. Let's kick it off. What is up, my friend Tim? How are you doing today?
Dude, super grateful to be alive. Happy day one, or for many, it's Friday, which is pretty awesome. Happy Friday.
I love that. So Tim
It's
and I,
really like Saturday for some people.
it's true. So Tim and I are recording on a Friday. Doesn't matter what day of the week you're listening to this. Thank you for joining us. It's a privilege to have Tim on the show to share his knowledge, wisdom, his experience, his journey, his thoughtfulness with us. So Tim, are you ready to have some fun today?
Dude, I'm so ready, man. Let's do it.
Awesome. So look, Tim, I know a lot of people listening might be curious, who is this guy? And they really want to understand what you've done, what you're doing. So give us a quick background on like where you started your career and how you got to Guide today. And we'll talk a little bit more about Guide in a moment.
Yeah, man. Dude, it's so funny, Edward. Have been really championing and evangelizing the future of work for quite some time. So for the listeners who are listening to this, my name is Tim Salau. A lot of people refer to me as Mr. Future of Work. And that was just a brand name that I started a few years ago, just to declare how much I love my passion for technology, but also what's going on in the future of work and emerging tech and how it's really transforming the workforce. And, prior to even the work that I do now as the CEO of Guide, which is a bite-sized training video training app for enterprise remote teams, was grateful enough to work with companies such as WeWork, Microsoft, Google, did some short stints with Facebook and LinkedIn, even in the past. And also, was grateful enough to attend school at some of the best universities in the world, in Texas Tech University as a psychology major, as well as the University of Texas in Austin as an information studies major. And, for really most of my life, I've always been really passionate about technology, the humanities, but also kind of being a designer of things and a constructor of things. And my career thus far, I've worked a variety of different roles, from AI product management to being a design ops manager to being a developer evangelist for Facebook's developer ecosystem. And I've loved every part of my career journey. But now my team and I, we're really focused on building Guy and focused on our Guy movement and really helping every organization unleash the creators within their workforce. So I spend most of my time like talking about the future of work, talking to really cool people like Edward who are passionate about career transformation and really seeing, what more can we do to continue building a better future where people have more control over their careers.
It's awesome, Tim. And what you're building is necessary and an intersection, I think, of a lot of apps and technologies that exist on the marketplace already, but they haven't been woven into the B2B world. So I think Guide is going to be a household name going forward. And what I'm interested to really unpack is you studied psychology, right?
Mm.
So I think a lot of people listening might be wondering, how do you go from a psych major to where you are today? Because it's 2020, and if we look at the majority of millennials or Gen Z listeners, they'll think about, look, like there's so much you could have done between when you graduated and what you're doing today.
Mm.
So what was the thought process there, right? How did you go from psychology to this constant growth throughout your career to where you are now?
Edward, would love to get your thoughts on this, man, because I believe everyone needs to study the humanities a little bit more. And I don't care what humanities it is, maybe philosophy, art, poetry, if you're into poetry. But, psychology, when I got my major in psychology, it was really a matter of, it actually came from a personal space. My parents are Nigerian immigrants. So, they had a really different way of acculturating to the United States once we moved here to the United States in 1999. And, they were a lot more conservative in a lot of their values, their belief systems. When I was younger, I didn't really get to hang out with a lot of my friends. It wasn't like go hang out with Nick or Bobby at his parents' house every weekend until like 2 a.m. in the morning. It was more so like, make sure you're home by 8 p.m. and that you're in bed and hopefully you're doing your homework or you're reading a few books, right? So like my upbringing was a little bit different, but also, there was a lot of things about my upbringing that I really loved as well, which was, my parents really focused on a lot on community. We were very giving, a giving family. And we always looked out for people, even if they weren't part of our immediate family. So much so that my dad started a church, just so he can inspire people and really be bonded to community. But for me, when I decided to get a psychology degree, it was really like I wanted to understand more about kind of like the psychology around family development, personal development, growth. And I think for me, it's also dictated a lot about how I see my career, right? One of the most powerful psychological principles is this idea of neuroplasticity, the fact that we're always growing, our brain is always evolving, and that the fact that we can actually design our brains if you really want to get into the creepiness of it, and you really design your brain by kind of cultivating and crafting different experiences, right? So I've had a lot of different experiences in tech, working with a lot of amazing companies, and now I'm working and founding my own company. But my career is, if someone looks at it at a high level, they'll be like, dude, this guy is not focused. He's everywhere. But the reality is that every one of the experiences I've had, even up until now, has actually informed how I think about product management, business, the future of work, building relationships, being of service to community. So it's like all of them have shaped me. So a lot of the way I think about even your job or your life, or your career is like you kind of have to craft everything, right? If you're not happy, craft it so you can become happier. And I think psychology has influenced my thought process in a career in many ways like that.
That's one of the most powerful and informative statements anyone could have said, because our minds are malleable and we are able to shift how we think, how we look at things. And what you just mentioned is that you've had multiple experiences throughout your career in different environments, and you've been able to aggregate all of that knowledge and infuse it into Guide and what you're doing right now. And that is an important lesson to think through, because as people are constantly seeing the world shift in front of our eyes at lightning speed, people will constantly ask you, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? Why are you investing time in this particular element of the world or life? And we don't always have a good answer for it. But the reality is, we have to be in tune with who we are, what we care about, even in a momentary time. So
Mm.
you've done that really well. And you've kind of aggregated all of that. And I agree with you that if you've taken a psych class, any sort of humanity class, whether it be in high school or in college, grad school, there's a lot of value in those classes. And to me, it's probably the most instrumental type of course that I've ever taken in my life. And I've been fortunate to take a few of them. And they've helped me become who I am today, similar to what you said. You and I have very similar upbringings, immigrant families, very different perspective on assimilation into American culture. And it's enabled us to become who we are today. Through that experience, I'm curious if we can go a little bit deeper, because I love culture
Mm.
and I love tapping into different mindsets and how people think. And I'm actually really curious about just your family life in Nigeria and really understanding what it's like for your parents, but then also what it's like for you. And what I mean by that is, we all, as immigrants, bring in something into America and this positivity and the hope that comes with it. But obviously, there's a lot of anchors that hold us down, a
Yeah.
certain type of thinking. So I'm curious if you can expand on that a little bit more, so I can get to know kind of that side of the culture as well as anybody listening.
Yeah, dude. No, I love that. This is actually a really great deep dive question, man. I love that you share, because for me, when we moved to America, like my parents were well off in Nigeria, so my parents were wealthy. I mean, they were doing amazing. And when they actually moved to America, they actually took a huge risk.
Mm.
And the biggest upside for them that they saw was the fact that, well, my son and my daughter at the time, they'll have access to a better educational opportunity. Even right now, if you're reading the news about what's going on in Nigeria, there's people who are being killed who are youth, and it's part of the End SARS movement. And, it kind of even touches on a little bit about the nepotism and the corruption that goes on in Nigeria now. But even think about it, how it was in the 1990s. In the 1999, it was worse then, but my parents were actually really well off. They were probably, if you looked at them within the class system, they were upper class. They had amazing jobs. They were married. They had a great family. And also, they're Christian. So they were really embraced there. So when they actually moved to America, it was almost like they displaced themselves and sacrificed to give me and my sister a better opportunity. Just to, like, in 10, 15, 20 plus years, they didn't know how we would turn out. But they were like, well, the upside of this is if we take this risk, that will hopefully produce really, really smart children who will eventually go on to change the world, right? So that's a huge risk for one. But a lot of the value that they brought to the table, and I think was really interesting that in growing up, that I think I absorbed a lot. My dad's a pastor. He's had a kind of a very layered career as well. He's been a microbiologist. He had to reskill himself when he moved to America in 1999, early 2000s. So going from community college to getting to working for a company called Quest Diagnostics, to another company called MD Henderson. Like, they've been through a lot just in the time that they lived here. So you see a lot of resilience in, I think, immigrant families, but also in Nigerian culture, but also this idea of community. I believe has been a big part of the value system of my family and within the Nigerian culture. And that's really the fact that this idea of Ubuntu, right? We're better together. So when my parents first transitioned to America, dude, like they knew a few people. They knew a few people in Houston. That's where we landed. And those people embraced them and said, hey, we'll let you stay in our apartment for a few months as you kind of transition and figure things out. You and your son and your daughter, you're fine. It's cool, right? Get on your feet, right? Like, we'll share our bathroom with you. We'll share our living room with you. We'll even share our resources and our network with you. there's this powerful element and of that I often reflect in my culture and the way I see product, the way I see building a brand, building a movement, building relationships. The fact that you know uh, you can always think from this abundance mentality, right? Like, what's the upside? Because if you take a risk, whatever risk you take, whether in your career or even as in your personal life, you always kind of have to think about it from a risk reward ratio, right? And also from this idea of long term gratification versus instant gratification. So I think often what I've noticed in my culture, Nigerian culture, because I see it in my family, and you see it a lot in Nigerian culture and some other African cultures as well, is that there's this idea of long term thinking. There's this idea of really community and collectivist values, but also resilience, right? Like if you get knocked down, okay, well, keep building, right? And I think that's just some people call it grit. I think to a degree, I like to call it focus and discipline. And I saw it a lot in my dad. You know, even building a church, like it takes a lot of discipline. He doesn't have a mega church. He has like a very small, intimate communal church, but like it took a lot of discipline to really build community, build following, and really build a lot of believers in what he was doing. And I think for me, I've seen so much of powerful values that I even incorporate in how I think about building a company, and also how to treat humans and people as well. What about you, man?
So let me comment on that real quick. So now I can tell where that authenticity, that genuineness comes into play. And it's really from your family. And I appreciate you sharing that story. It's impactful in many different ways. It shares and sheds a light on the immigrant pathway to the States. And it's not easy for a lot of people. And I honestly can reflect on that as well, because I don't remember it personally, but my parents, similar experience. We landed in Chicago
Yeah.
and they didn't know many people, but we had some family there. My grandpa at the time was living in Chicago. He had actually immigrated earlier to the States. But that being said, it just takes a little bit of thoughtfulness into what you invest your time in. And we all need people to support us. We need community to help us. And I think that's where you and I find this commonality and this bond where we recognize the importance of community and the value that it brings to so many people and the value of a network, and understanding that you invest today, not for tomorrow, not for 5 days from now or a year from now. It's really for the future. And it's a fundamental shift in thinking, because our world today, especially through social media, has programmed a lot of people to want instant gratification and reward. And you get a dopamine hit for 5 seconds. And then what?
Mm.
That's where the cyclical kind of depressive cycle kicks in for a lot of people. My hope is we can help people understand the value of longer term investment, not just in money in your career, but literally yourself. Invest in yourself and how you think, how you operate. Welcome self awareness into your life. And I think for both of us, our parents afforded us that mentality. And you hit on a term that really stuck out to me, which is resilience.
Mm.
And now more than ever, we need this resilience from leadership outside of politics, but leadership within communities, leadership within the workplace, within maybe religious establishments like your father. So what's 2020 been like for you from that resilience mindset? And if you could share a little bit of advice from your own learnings.
Dude, I mean, man, I mean, we could probably both speak to this, man. 2020, we had to pivot an entire business and guide. Like an entire, like I think, for me, 2020 has been a transformative year for me as personally as a leader and as a founder, but also just as a human. I think I've been telling people that it's been more of a metamorphosis here, right? Like I think that a lot of companies or a lot of people, whether or not they were building during the COVID or like building like their next big business or something like that, like you really had time to either grow intrinsically or even grow because of an external event such as COVID happened, and it forces you to like really focus on what's next, whether with your family, with your business, with your friends, with your wife. It really forces you to like think from a lens of what's next, where are we going? And for me, man, 2020 has been special because pre-2020, pre-COVID, literally 2020 is the year of COVID, right? We were actually a life skills training guide, right? Post-COVID, we're a bite-sized video training app for enterprise remote teams. Now, going from a life skills training app in the ed tech market to a B2B enterprise like app is a huge stretch, but we were able to easily make this pivot because we were still small, but fundamentally, we never gave up on our vision and our mission for the company, right? Like for me, my co-founder, we're super passionate about education. We're super passionate about skills development and training. We kind of changed the what, but our why was still intact. So for me, I realized that, you'll talk to a lot of founders. You'll see a lot of stuff on Twitter that founders and VCs share, joking about kind of like fundraising and building a company, like all of the galore about it. But the reality is that it's a very tough thing to like pivot a business. And here's why I say that. Before 2020, before COVID, Guide actually had 3 founders. It was me, Taban, and our co-founder, Mike. After 2020, we still have 3 co-founders, but one of them isn't with us operationally. And that's because when we had to pivot the business, our co-founder, Mike, he decided he couldn't be a part of our like on the ground, in the weeds. He couldn't be a part of the journey anymore just because it was taking a toll on him and his family, right? And his psychology, and the fact that he had to really focus on what was in front of him, which was his family, and making sure that they were well and making sure that he had a stable job and things were a lot more stable than him like working on a startup. And like literally in the moment when he told me that I can't be a part of the company anymore operationally, I was upset. I was frustrated. I wasn't even mad at him. I was just mad. I was like sad. I remember I was in my parents' home, and I was literally in tears after the call. And I also cried like a few days before because I was just like, man, this shit is hard. Like, man, I wish I could just come back with my family and just stay with them permanently. And, after, we give it a few days, Mike is still friends with me and Taban, and, we're still really great friends. Like, he's one of our biggest supporters. But I realized, like, in moments like that, they really mold you as a leader. And it's actually been one of, like, the highlights of my 2020 in a good way, not a bad way, because it helped me realize that, when you're on a journey, when you're building a venture, when you're building anything, yes, like, shit's going to hit the fan. But really successful founders, successful human beings, I think, are human beings that are able to realize that, like, look, the upside, meaning in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year, 2 years, 10 years, if you even think that long, the upside is actually always better than the moment. So for me, I see kind of resilience always from this risk and reward ratio of like, well, if I keep going, what happens, right? Because every day I have my wealth and I have my health, I'm creating opportunity, right? And if I'm helping other people, like something's gonna come my way that, will allow me to continue building, continue doing. So, I think I always I've shared that story and framing a lot as I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs and people, because my 2020 sucked, but also my 2020 was amazing as well. So like in that bittersweetness, I think it's life, right? But you have to embrace it. So I think that's where the resilience comes, in my opinion, man.
Hey there, listeners. I just wanted to pop in and let you know that as a part of Career Meets World, I am now taking on exclusive one-on-one clients who are hungry leaders or entrepreneurs and want to learn how to succeed under immense pressure. I believe that being an effective business leader is equal parts understanding your subconscious and developing and executing a personalized growth plan. These two aspects continually build upon each other, and my coaching practice is designed to amplify your confidence levels and provide you a toolkit to thrive in any situation. Career Meets World is the ultimate achievement partner, and we support our clients with an always-on approach. So if you're ready to unleash your wildest leadership potential and take control of your success, find Career Meets World or me personally, Edward Gorbis, on LinkedIn and shoot me a short message about your goals with the title, Let's Start. And now it's time to get back to today's episode. I love that. And I'm sure anybody listening has experienced a multitude of different things throughout 2020, whether or not you're at a company right now, whether or not you're a founder or a leader in an organization. What Tim just said is really important to remember is that no matter what happens, no matter how difficult it gets, understanding that there's always an upside because you have made the consistent investment throughout your life to create a community that will support you, that will uplift you, that will keep pushing you and supporting your mission no matter what it is. And what I love is like, because you've built that and you had that and with your family and your friends and your other founders, that you kept persevering and you adapted. I think that's the most important thing that I've ever taken away from reading Charles Darwin's The Theory of Evolution, is that he said it's not the strongest that survive, it's the most adaptable.
Mm.
So what I see, what was that, Tim?
I love that. I love that. And it's so true. And especially when it comes to organizations and business.
And we've seen that, right? Like if we think about the most adaptable businesses of 2020, they have realized that their model fundamentally has to change, whether or not they want it to change. Yes, certain tech companies have just benefited from timing and the fact that everyone's at home and we rely on the technology, such as Zoom that we're using right now. Right place, right time. And that's a huge part of business as well. It's just timing, luck, product fit matters, but there's other components that go into it. So no matter what you're going through, remember that adaptability and resilience is critical for your long-term success, not short-term. Short-term, it's bumpy, it's turbulent, it feels like an upside down roller coaster, but you'll come out just fine with the right approach and right mindset. And with that said, Tim, I want to understand, I know that your family helped you a lot through all of this.
Yeah.
But in today's world, who are some of the key people that, let's call them on your board of directors, your personal board, not your company board, that are there to uplift you and support you and inspire you through these tough moments? Because I think everyone really needs people to cheerlead for them and push them.
Dude.
So who's there for you?
Yeah, I'm actually inspired by a lot of creators. Like creators like you inspired me. People who are putting quality out into the world, and it's very easy to find these people. It's like if you have a brain and a radar, it's like you could tell people who are actually doing good things in the world and with good intent. So people like you inspired me, and I think for me, I'm a creator, so I'm always looking to learn from other creators on how they're building their business, how they're leading their own respective movements. What's driving them, what's their creative process like. So we have I think even within our board at Guide of advisors, not a board of executives, I know creators such as Robin Daniels, who's a mutual friend of ours, and he's probably one of the best marketers in the world, and he just loves what he does, and he brings so much energy and positivity to it. We have Jonathan Reichenthal, who's also another amazing thought leader in the smart city space. And we also have, women in our advisory board who are such as Janine Sickmeyer. She is leading an amazing movement around empowering founders of color to build their own businesses and bringing more attention to the fact that minority founders deserve funding. And, and Diane Finkhausen is also another advisor on our advisory board who's like just really powerful at kind of leading this revolution about building platform marketplaces. And I think if I even expanded it beyond my immediate circle, I'm always inspired by people like Mr. Obama, Barack Obama, the Michelle Obamas, the Oprahs of the world. I think you think of those luminaries. I will say a lot of people in VC don't really inspire me. Just because I often think about venture capital and I think about like entrepreneurship. It's like, for me, there's nothing sexy about being a founder. I think it's a really tough thing. It's really hard. You go through a lot of personal sacrifices that we don't really talk a lot about and we don't get vulnerable about. So I'm often more so inspired by people who are creating and they really share a lot of authenticity, right? And what they're doing, right? A really very super contextual example is that just recently on Twitter, the founder of Circle Up, the founder and CEO of Circle Up, recently shared his story on literally what it was like building the company in the early 2000s, to like the craziness he went through as a founder and also being a board member, and the investors are on his board, and just like the hell that he was juggling, from fertility issues with his family to potentially being sick of cancer. Like that is the real, that's as real as it gets for anyone building a company, or even any creator building something that they care about, right? And for me, I'm always inspired by stories like that, people who are really sharing and doing good in the world, but they're also authentic about it, man. So some of the people I mentioned are the people that really inspired me. I mean, Barack Obama definitely, he's authentic. He's as authentic as they come, man. So I love people like that, bro.
I appreciate that. And it's so interesting to look at like who we connect with today, because a lot of people glamorize the venture capital space. The reality is they're necessary to fuel a lot of the creators. That being said, there's so much opportunity today to create on your own through a lot of different mediums. Obviously, social media is a great platform, agnostic to which ones, but we all know what they are. And I know that creating is difficult, and you opened up a door that we're going to step into right now, because you brought up the fact that creation, being a founder, is not easy. And a lot of people, again, glamorize it as this thing that I want to put, that I'm an entrepreneur or a CEO on my LinkedIn. Great. Then what? Are you signing up for the job description that comes along with that? So let's both talk about that a little bit, because I think it's important for anybody listening and curious about entrepreneurship or what it takes to truly start something from nothing.
Yeah.
So can you shine a light on your experience, your journey, some of the challenging things that's happened throughout this period of time that you've been building out Guide?
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Where do we start, bro? I think the biggest one, man, is, first of all, I always tell people I never even wanted to build a company. Like there never was it, when I was getting my psychology degree, information studies degree, I never told myself I would be a CEO of a company one day, or a founder. Like this is not something I ever asked for. It's just something more so like it was a bestowed responsibility. In fact, how I met my founder, my co-founder, Tabad, he actually pitched me on what we now see as Guide. And I was like, well, I mean, I believe in you and I believe in this idea and I'm passionate about it. Let's just continue building our friendship and seeing what becomes of it. Literally, that's literally how this came about. And we just had the less necessary skills and competencies to really match each other and complete each other really, really well to build a really strong business and movement around this. It was a fit. But it was never, I didn't meet Tabata. I was like, hey, man, I'm trying to be a CEO and a founder, right? So for me, I think the nitty gritty of what being a CEO and founder looks like is that there will be times where your company's on the brink of death and you literally have to figure out how to keep going. There were times where, Tabata had quit his job and he was full in on Guide. He wasn't really having any stable income coming in. So I would just send him doses of capital as I had, like based on what I had, and can at least reserve for him versus myself, and making sure we were taking care of the business. I was sending him doses of capital, just making sure he'll use it for whatever he wanted. Like he could allocate it to building his own business, feed himself. I didn't care. I was just sending it to him, literally thousands, 250 here and there, just to make sure that he was good, literally. And this is I never said, hey, make sure you pay me back. It was just like, bro, just take care of yourself. Here's what Taban did with that capital. He built his own business, which was brilliant because he built his own business so he can consult on the side, share his expertise, use that to take care of himself, freelance, whatever he did, so we could stay afloat as a duo and as a company, right? So in the early days, it's just you and your co-founder. You guys are the business, right? Like, so if anything happens to either of you all, if I were to pass away, if he was to pass away, there is no more Guy. So the most important thing for us was like making sure that we were eating, we were alive, and we had revenue coming in either on his side, my side, collectively, so we can continue to sustain the business, right? So like if you have a founder if you have a co-founder and you claim to them to be a co-founder, if you claim to be a CEO and an early stage founder, and you don't have a venture partner doing any of that, or you're a solo founder, like it's tough, like even tougher. And more importantly, I don't think you should. If your co-founder isn't doing that for you, I don't even think you guys should be building, because you guys definitely won't last the marathon, right? Forget the early stages. It's truly a marathon building a company, man. So for me, it's like moments like that when I knew, like at points in our journey where I was just sending to Bond Capital just to make sure he would survive. And now seeing where we're at, we're in a much better stage. Things are much brighter for us. We have a much better company. We have the product out. We have a strong founding team. We have investor interest. It kind of lets me realize, man, like the journey from then to now, it's like it's a matter of resilience, keeping it and really being very gritty and really, I think, like not giving up on your co-founder, but also not giving up on yourself. Because there are founders that definitely get into relationships with co-founders or even potential investment partnerships that become really corrosive, right? And because they want to be founders, they want to build a venture so bad, they want to build the next Facebook and Google, that they really actually forget that none of those companies were built in 2 years, 3 years. They were built in decades. And they were also built based off a lot of grit and ingenuity, right? It really takes time to do the things that Facebook and Google has done, whether or not we care about how good or bad they are for the world. It takes a lot of time and focus, but it also takes really smart founders who are in it for the right reasons, right? So, I always try to contextualize that when I talk about entrepreneurship to founders, because people think it's fun and it's glamorous. It's not fun. It's not glamorous. It's hard, but it can be highly, highly rewarding if you have the right people involved.
You're totally right. The people is what helps you create something magical. That being said, I feel like anybody who signs up to be a founder or starts creating something understands that there's a high probability that it might not succeed. And when you go into something, certainly you want to create it, you want to build it, you want to share your gift with the world, but understand that the whole process, the mindset is about learning.
100%, bro.
And looking at what can I gain as well as project out into the world and share with people. So I appreciate that you're sharing right now what you've learned throughout that whole process, because it's a roller coaster, and it's an emotional roller coaster as well at times, because we don't know what's going to happen the next day or what might come our way, but it's magnified when the good comes.
Yo,
when people start to see and feel and recognize and they're attracted to it. And that's where all that hard work really culminates and comes together. So I'm excited to see Guide continue to grow, you personally grow with your founders and your team. And I know that a lot of people are going to connect with what you're doing. So I highly recommend connecting with Tim, looking at what he's doing through a lot of different lenses. But as Guide evolves, certainly take notice, because it's going to become a household name. So
thank you so much, Ed. Appreciate the blessings, man.
Of course, my friend. Look, Tim, I love what you share and I love what you put out. And I feel like we're going to have a sequence of conversations over the next couple of years on this podcast. That being said, Tim, before we let you off the hook, as we do with all of our guests, we make sure to put them through our hot seat. That is your ticket out of here.
I love it.
So are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready, man.
Let's do it.
Put me on a hot seat.
Let's do it. So, Tim, you are now officially on the hot seat. Literally, I'm going to ask you 3 specific questions that are personalized for you. So I want to really understand, like, if you could think of one emoji that describes you the best, which one is it?
Oh, dude, it's the meditation emoji and the T emoji. Those are my 2 favorite emojis, bro.
Perfect. I love it. You knew exactly what they are. Tim, you moved here from Nigeria, and obviously you share the fact that there's a lot of turmoil there and there's difficult things going on there. What's one inspiring thing you want people to know about Nigeria?
Dude, it's a freaking beautiful, beautiful country. One, and it's rich in culture. and you can get lost on many new ventures in Nigeria. In fact, I'm going back to Nigeria very, very soon, probably in 2021. But it's such a beautiful country, and it's not just lion, tigers, and bears. I think some people think it's lions, tigers, and bears and like wilderness. It's actually a really thriving metropolis. And stop watching the news, stop reading the news because they barely truly contextualize how beautiful of a country Nigeria is. So you got to just go visit there. If you've never been either to the African continent or specifically Nigeria, just go visit and you'll see how amazing and beautiful it is. So it's a beautiful country, truly beautiful.
Awesome. So again, like you said, make sure to do your own research and trust the fact that there's so many beautiful things in Nigeria. Yeah. I'm excited.
We're on a VR headset. They're like VR headsets that take you to like different countries now. It's pretty cool. And you'll see just how interesting Nigeria is. It's a beautiful metropolis. So that's my biggest insight on Nigeria.
Awesome. Last question for you. What are you most looking forward to in 2021?
Man, dude, Edward, I'm really looking for everyone to grow, man. It's been a tough year for everyone. I think 2020 literally COVID didn't waste this year. It just was like a dull year. It truly was a dull year. And I think our economy is gonna just blossom in 2021. And when I think about that, I think people are gonna blossom. I think we're gonna see more companies like Guide continue to thrive. We're gonna see. I think unemployment rates decrease, not increase, and I think we're gonna actually see a lot more travel. I hope, whether it be nationally, but also a little bit more happening globally, internationally. So I think 2021 is gonna be like a growth year for not only for tech, but I think for humanity is what I'm hoping on, man.
Love the positivity. I appreciate that. What is important to remember is 2020 is not a dead year. It is a grind, and we build up that resilience through this year. And as you're thinking about what Tim just shared momentarily and throughout this entire conversation, is 2020 and the entire year has been about planting seeds into your future, into investing into what's happening going forward for you. And when 2021 hits and beyond, and calendar years are just calendar years, understand that your hard work today matters, even behind closed doors in your house. So how you show up for yourself really matters, and take that to heart. And Tim, I always take to heart when we spend time together. So I genuinely appreciate you spending time with us today. I want to make sure that people who are attracted to your vision, your creativity, can connect with you. So what's the best way to reach out?
Oh, please follow me on Twitter or LinkedIn. Super active on LinkedIn or Twitter. If you want to follow our Guide app movement, or our Guide movement, I'm sorry, please check out guideapp.co and join to be a beta user. We're gradually expanding our beta program. We have amazing creators like Edward who are creating amazing content on our platform, and just getting, and we're still in baking, we're still in incubation, and we're actively raising our seed round as well. So we're juggling a lot of different hats, but we're moving nonetheless. So if you really want to be a supporter and want to be a part of what we're building and what we continue to build, please check out guideapp.co, sign up for early access, and just be a part of our movement with us.
Please follow Tim. He is a genuine human being who has always been there for me personally and for a lot of other people. So he is building something beautiful. If you want to be somebody who said, I'm one of the early people that was a part of Guide, join now and check him out. So Tim, like I said, thank you so much for joining us. It's always a pleasure. And as we always say at Career Meets World, go unleash your wildest potential.
Thanks so much, man. Will do.
Hey, thanks so much for listening to the Career Meets World podcast. I would love to get to meet you. There are a couple of ways we can connect. I love my LinkedIn. Simply search for Career Meets World or Edward Gorbis and feel free to connect. Second is via Instagram at Career Meets World. And third is through our website. I have a special spot for you full of fun, free resources. All you have to do is go to careermeetsworld.com, subscribe to our newsletter, and we'll provide you the free resources to help you boost your career and reach financial freedom. And if this podcast was helpful to you in any way, please consider rating and reviewing this podcast on Apple Podcasts. This helps us help more people. Simply tap the rate with 5 stars and leave a sentence with what you liked about the podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, strengthening your growth mindset is your ticket to success. I'm Edward Gorbis, and we'll catch you on next week's episode.